found that in order to get full coverage on YouTube, you have to have copyright-free music, because I'm all about getting that bag. You cannot get monetized if you have anything that resembles possible copyright infringement. Therefore, I had to change my intro. Hey y'all, this is 2022, a new year, a new time for podcasting. And I had to get a funky beat to basically express what I want to put out in the atmosphere. And this is TNFro. I'm back again. I'm a social critic, thought leader, but I'm more reclusive and cranky. But I want to read, watch, cook, and just share all things that make me happy. My wish is that this increases the curiosity of the listening audience to come back for more and to share with friends. I want 1 million unique listeners and downloads. I want Creative Quality Millie to be known around the world. Won't he do it? Yes, he will. So if you're listening to me on YouTube, click subscribe. Tip a sister. And I just want to thank you guys for listening. And enjoy and get your bop on. Copyright free. This week has been really interesting for Black excellence because I have been focusing a lot on Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. She is the first African-American woman to be nominated and should probably get the nomination for Supreme Court Justice. What I could not abide by was the nonsense that she's being subjected to. Everything that I read about her blows my mind. Her beginnings in her family, just middle-class family, both teachers, Harvard Law School, Harvard Review, clerked for the guy. This is what trips me out. She clerked for the guy that she's getting ready to replace. What the hell? And I am floored by her grace and her poise. And she is obviously being gaslighted by these fools in the GOP. I hate it for her. She's handling it so much better than I could, because I would want to bitch slap Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz and even Lindsey Graham, because they're asking her dumbass questions. What does critical race theory, what does any of their line of questioning have to do with her record 10-year record as a federal district judge? They didn't show the same impudence to that white lady, Barrett, who is obviously conservative, who is obviously a white Christian conservative. But they didn't show her that amount, even though Judge Jackson is so much more qualified than that heifer is. And I believe that Cory Booker understood the assignment, and I wonder if my next person is going to do a documentary about her after she gets confirmed, and just do a comparison, the treatment or the level of treatment, how they treated her versus, and even the white boy before her, how they treated them versus this a line of questioning for Judge Brown Judge Brown Jackson, who I think is even more qualified than either one of them, because the white boy was a rapist, and they treated his victim about the same as they're treating her. There's no grace given to any black women. You can be obviously overqualified or way more qualified than the job calls for, and you still gonna be treated horribly, because that's how they're treating her. And they all need to be ashamed of themselves. I've only been watching it peripherally. I can't stand to see them drag this lady, but I'm glad that people like Cory Booker and the other representatives are acting like they got some damn sense. And there is no reason for them to hold up her confirmation longer than to do some more political grandstanding and ask some dumbass questions that have nothing to do with her excellent record as a judge and a litigator. And she's so much more. She's being subjected to a line of questioning from people that are not even good enough to carry her bags. That's what really bothers me to the whole thing. And they're doing it, they're so callous, it is just so obvious that what their intent is. They're obviously trying to gaslight her, but she ain't falling for that dumbass. She basically redirects, stand firm, and defend. If they ask a valid question, she defends her decisions, and she's worked some tricky cases, with child abuse, as well as the Guantanamo Bay, which we know is probably constitutional, not right, but they are a terror. We were put on the terrorist list, but I think it's more than that. I think it's because they were all from Muslim and they're all brown men. But that's neither here nor there, because we got more domestic terrorists that look more like Josh Hawley and them versus the guys down in Guantanamo. But I'm just saying. I'm also, I basically was celebrating the greatness of Ava DuVernay. She basically has a life that I absolutely can admire. I did not know she was a publicist and had a day job for a number of years before she even picked up a camera when she was 33. She's gone on to win a whole bunch of awards and Oscar nominations, found a real bad butt. I've tried to find and locate any of the written books by these great women, Ava DuVernay, movie director, and include them in my blog post but unfortunately for Judge Jackson, all of her books were self-published, and they're actually only available on Amazon. You can look up Ketanji Brown Jackson and buy them there. I'll keep trying to find them once they are released to the general public like myself, and I'll make them available on my my online bookstore as soon as they're available for purchase. And so that's two big ups to two great powerhouses of black women. And then I just wanted to mention rest in power to Madeline Albright. She basically passed away surrounded by her loving family today at the age. These people are going away fast. I didn't know, but now I do. She's the first female Secretary of State, passed away from cancer at the age of 84, as I said, surrounded by family. I'll probably be profiling her since it's still Women's History Month. And I know she probably has books she's written and books that have been written about her. She was described as a tireless champion of democracy and human rights. President Joe Biden remembered her as a force for goodness, grace, and decency, and for freedom. She defied convention and broke barriers again and again. She was appointed by good old Slick Willie Bill, confirmed 99-0 completely different than the nonsense we have going on in DC now. And he remembered her as an extraordinary human being. This is a great loss to the world as we know it, politics, but may she rest in power. Hopefully she's up there giving both John Lewis and Elijah, the representative from Baltimore, hell, and making it right and making people think and stop and act like they got some home training. So rest in power to another great woman. And as I said, I'll probably be looking up and adding several of her several things that she's possibly written and things that have been written about her. And I'll be more than likely showcasing her in my upcoming blog post on Dale's Angels Inc. So I don't go anywhere. I'm antisocial and I like staying in my house. My house is comfortable. All my good shit is here. My booze, my dog, my pool. There's no reason for me to go anywhere. So I watch a lot of TV. And I stream a lot of things. Billions, all the chef shows, crime TV, because it actually helps me refine my screenwriting craft. One of my newly found shows that I absolutely love is To Catch a Smuggler and To Catch a Smuggler Brazil. I have discovered an entire law enforcement agency that is worse than Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, that is worse than TSA, Homeland Security, and the FBI. These Brazilian federales are cracking me up. I've never seen anything this funny in all my life. It doesn't matter. You can be carrying a couple of ounces for your own personal use or transporting up to 20 keys of pure cocaine. Mandatory sentences is anywhere between 5 and 15 years. You going to jail. And if they find you trying to sneak in counterfeit bull to their country, like Louis Vuitton, etc., they're confiscated. You may get a warning, and then they're supposed to burn it. But I know that stuff is going to end up in one of the, I know this is wrong, but I don't care. Probably in one of the flea markets in Sao Paulo. But what cracks me up, I can't believe that there is a federal law enforcement agency that's worse than anything I've seen here in the United States. They are freaking cracking me up. These federales are kind of fine though, and they're not nice. They don't care. They're not respectful. They don't have the same technology, but they do this like the shake test and the spray. And everybody is trying to come in with everybody's trying to come in with cocaine when y'all in the cocaine of capital of the world. But what about Special K? What about meth? What about other drugs? But they really get keys. This is like they got millions of dollar bust of cocaine and somebody just rolling it in their American Tourister luggage. This lady with her counterfeit Louis Vuitton is cracking me up, because not only is it counterfeit Louis Vuitton, he basically packaged up drugs in the counterfeit designer purses and wallets. And she's basically pissed off. She said if we weren't shackled, she would pimp smack him. That shit is funny as fuck. I think it's hilarious. And yes, they profiling everybody that's black and brown and from certain countries. But they are even more gangster down there than as I said, our law enforcement. If y'all don't do anything all week, please stream on the Smithsonian or National Geographic channel To Catch a Smuggler. Actually, To Catch a Smuggler US is funny. But this shit from Brazil with the subtitles is the funniest crap I have ever seen in my life. And I am going to need to put this on the rotation because it is funny. Now I'm going to take a break from watching this, get my lo mein with scallops, and fight my dog because Ethel don't know she is not a human and she wants to eat noodles. So there you go. That's Vio Dance's evolution of the Star Trek series. I loved it because it's from the original series that ran only 3 short years, from 66 to 69. But I thought it was brilliant and apropos that I was going to start this section continuing about what I'm watching, because I'm going to talk about this week's episode of Picard, and this is the last Star Trek log for Discovery, which the finale was last week. Of course, I didn't have it.
Let out our collective breaths. I could feel the crew's relief when Earth finally appeared on the view screen. At Dr. Culber's suggestion, we gathered in the lounge, a chance to celebrate and just be. We'd barely arrived, the rest of the crew still on their way, when Tilly walked in. It was so good to see her. And for me, that's when it truly sank in how much we've been through, how much she's changed, how much we've all been changed by this journey. The Federation has come together in a new way, been made stronger by facing a threat bigger than itself, bigger than all of us. Now that the threat's behind us, there's this feeling of hope. For the first time in a long time, it feels like the future is wide open again. And I cannot wait to see what happens next.
And we can't either. I think, or I know that I am biased because I particularly like this show because of the representation of all of the actors and the actresses. Different, of course, a different species, but just how many women and other are just in positions of leadership. It's more of a representation of what society is and further representation of how we want it to be. And of course, I was just completely overjoyed about the Stacy being the president of the United Earth. That it would take 600 years, but it eventually happened. What I also, and I keep going back to that, I thought the writing was, of course, a little syrupy for my taste, but I thoroughly enjoyed that reference. I also thoroughly enjoyed, and also the implications I think about a lot. You know, why do we have to wait 700 years to get to that point where a Black woman with that strength can be the president of the world? That is so crazy to me. I also liked whoever did her styling, whoever made that uniform. I want that uniform. I may be Stacey Abrams, President Stacey Abrams of United Earth for Halloween this year. I'm just saying, any opportunity to wear cool Star Trek gear, I'm there for it. So I also paused for a minute. I watched Star Trek Picard. It was back in 2024 LA. I didn't know I was going to like it, but I did. As I said, I'm not as impressed with Picard this year, but it's starting to grow on me. I still have to rewatch and figure out, while I'm with y'all are with me, why did they kill off Eleanor on Picard. Let's see. Evan Evagoria, to watch, has gone the way of Tasha Yar. Yeah, that was true too. Okay, let's see. Kill off one of his main character, and it symbolized Picard moving from one season one's missteps. He died. Yes, he did. Shoots Eleanor with a phaser when he and his Confederation soldiers boarded Lacerna. The young Romulan dies from his injuries and is mourned by his surrogate parents and Rafi. Eleanor's sudden death also means that the Romulan warrior nuns are currently no longer a factor in Star Trek Picard Season 7. The Quat Malat, along with the villainous Zot Vash, are inventions of Star Trek Picard Season 1 showrunner Michael Chabon. The Quat Malat were essentially the opposite number to the Zot Vash, which was extremist faction of the Tal Shiar secret police. The sword-wielding Quat Malat are different from traditional Romulans in that they practice absolute candor and freely express what they think. The Quat Malat also only bind their swords to lost causes. Although they are women, Eleanor was adopted into the fold and trained as a warrior after he was orphaned during the Romulans' evacuation when their son went supernova. Eleanor and Quat are befriended by Picard, who has known the young Romulan ninja since child. Overall, the Malat are part of changes of Star Trek. Before his death, he moved to recognized as the first full, and then he's stationed aboard the USS Excelsior with Rafi. With all the time travel madness Picard is now facing, there is no onus to further explore Eleanor as a member of the Quat Malat. As intriguing a concept as the Quat Malat is, they don't fit in Star Trek Picard Season 2's time travel story to prevent the dark future of the Confederation from ever happening. So they just kill him off. That sucks! Since it's being depicted better in Discovery, and now with the Romulans it seems like the Romulans having a role in that, it may be that we may see, because Burnham's mother is a part of Quat Malat, maybe they'll bring him back. Maybe they'll resurrect him later because he died in a conflated past. But I don't know. That kind of sucks. They just can't write off my play boyfriend like that. It's just very frustrating, but I don't know. It's a part of a storyline that I don't completely agree with. But I guess that was the main shocker of episode 3. Episode 4 basically goes back to the past and the world of 2024, and they basically allude to something that I knew reserve these places that were on the edge of existence, these sanctuaries. That harkens back to Deep Space Nine, and that's where Rios ends up being. And it cracks me up that ICE still exists in 2024, rounding up people, saying that the guard looks like a Ferengi is hysterical. He probably is a Ferengi. But the mashup of time travel and the blonde girl joining up with the Borg Queen torso is interesting. I'm interested in finding out how that progresses. I think we have to be careful with her because that girl is a little bit scattered and off meds, and I think she could end up messing things up, or we could come up with a bipolar drunk superhero Borg, which I don't think anybody is ready for that. I would prefer if Seven and the Borg Queen would actually assimilate, but that's just me and mine. The whole tone of it, and finding a young Guinan. She's only like 100 years old at that time. I like that actress, and I'm waiting to see the progression of the episode. That's why I'll probably be tuning back in next Thursday, because Q evidently has lost his powers. I don't know. It's because they don't want him to continue. The continuum is continuing to punish him for his continued meddling, or it's not effective in that. For some reason, his lack of powers in 2024 is albeit concerning, but maybe that's what actually happened, because he was doing it for fun. They found out about it and they cut him off because they're supposed to be omniscient. But is it because if they can correct it without him, will he then regain his powers? Because it's like humankind we're going to try or die hard trying. You know what I mean? So I'm intrigued by what is the whole why of Q losing his powers, and seeing how, left to their own devices, this ragtag crew, which is, I think, is an extension of Next Generation, is going to survive, and how are they going to thrive. So that is how I'm going to end this section on. Oh, and I also wanted, what else did I watch that I was absolutely intrigued about? Oh, Bridgerton drops today, actually, and I will be hopefully eating really good food, probably some mussels, probably not marinara, but mussels and butter sauce and basil topping, some angel hair pasta, while I sip on a cocktail and watch Bridgerton later on today. I'll probably make that a part of my podcast going forward. My comments, because it seems like all of the shows that are streaming today have their own separate podcasts with selected hosts. And I'm sure they're paying these people a grip for their skills and their followings. And I'm just doing this for free, but I hope I will have some witty commentary in next week's episode, or the next episode. I'll probably be posting that, a short clip video, or during the live tweet when I'm able to watch that later on today.
What's up, Doc? What's up, Doc?
I absolutely love that Trap God Bugsy Evans mix from the beat tape from 2021 to introduce this next part of the podcast. I'm going to be talking about COVID and all manner of shenanigans, and why we are moving or leaning into fascism. So with that said, let's get to it. I also am more determined than ever to make a living from my podcast and other ventures, because the world is such an amazing place. Too bad I have to make money to pay my bills. I could just stop making bills, but y'all know me. I'm just saying. But I say all of that to say is because I would prefer on any given day to be able to do this every day. This is being able to research and script. My podcast has become, it is a labor of love, but it is labor because I'm not known enough to be able to invite people onto my podcast that would attract anyone to come and just sit and talk with me, because there's just so much I could go over. I would love to have the much pull to have Anthony Fauci on the show. I'm sure somebody I went to school with probably has an inside track on somebody from DC, but I don't. I like not having to work around anybody else's schedule but my own. So I'll review stuff, I'll comment on it, and just keep it pushing for right now. But with that said, I have to find a way to get up listenership. I got to find a way to get someone else to be a sponsor, because this is actually really fun to me. But COVID is not finished with us yet. This new variant, B2A sub-0 Frankencron, is wreaking havoc. The numbers are starting to go back up again, not just in Europe. We may see that particular, it's been here, I'm sure, and just waiting to wreak havoc on people that have not been vaccinated and that are refusing to get vaccinated and have had natural COVID, but they don't have the protection at all because of Franken COVID. I think a fourth dose is coming, and I'm here for it. Being the hermit that I am, I'm just basically protecting myself, and just in case I do let somebody in my house, which is so infrequent. And that's why I think, given the fluid nature of the panorama POV, that removing or rolling back all of these vaccine mandates as well as mask mandates is stupid. And with that said, because there's always going to be a surge, we don't have enough for natural immunity. And this seems to be such fraught with just business and people wanting to be normal, and they're not willing to understand that this is what you're going to have to do, because the mask may just become a natural part of our life. Some people have benefited from having a mask because we some ugly mugs. Also, I am very much concerned about what I call medical shenanigans, also with not just with COVID, because people keep forgetting that there are more diseases and more things that are going on than the COVID Pro V. So one of the things that really blew my mind is I always get a kick out when I watch my crime shows when they highlight places that I've lived. There's a lot of Tennessee shenanigans going on as far as crime, but that's neither here nor there. But this was on MedPage, and I was reading this, that there was a doctor that his vitamin C study, Dr. Paul Merrick, I don't know why that name, something that's kind of niggling in the back of my head, but he basically had this study that was making waves amongst hospitalists and intensivists that basically say if you give people a regimen of hydrocortisone, vitamin C, thiamine, called the HAT protocol, this could increase lives saved from sepsis. And a researcher from Australia called BS said not only was it fabricated, he fabricated the study or the numbers, but it was coming to fraudulent.
It's not an easy task.
And he basically said that people were so excited about it, say he may one day win the Nobel Prize, but he basically fabricated it. So they looked at the data and they said it was just too perfect. And I'm wondering, these outliers, did he do a, what's that girl know? That's in the news now, or was in the news, that they were fabricating, they had a whole company, and said that it was a test, Theranos. They go Theranos on us? I'm thinking he did. And he probably said that there was going to be some cure, but his data was false. If you take a look at this article on MedPage, they published it just today. Infamous vitamin C study may rely on fraudulent data. Wow. And the only reason why I bring that up is because of EVMS, Eastern Virginia Medical School. I did a couple of rotations there, and it's right down the road from where I grew up in Virginia Beach. Also, on a more positive note, it basically states that we know that COVID, you are hypercoagulable from COVID. So they are predicting the earlier you can introduce like aspirin, which is an antiplatelet, which because your platelets are evidently too sticky in COVID. That's why we got 19-year-olds having strokes and heart attacks that when they get natural COVID. If the earlier on in their illness that you can introduce it, the better they are as far as decreasing the incidence of major clotting incidents. I want to be very clear. Aspirin by itself is not going to cure COVID it's not a treatment for COVID. It's a part of an overarching plan of care that will make your outcomes a lot better, meaning you will be less likely to stroke out if you got natural COVID. But what will keep you from getting COVID? Staying home, wearing your mask, getting the vaccine. We got some very good treatments, but this is only one part of a multi-level medical therapy that does not include ivermectin and definitely doesn't include monoclonal antibody and probably doesn't include Zithromax, because those things are less likely to increase your survival versus having some weird side effect because you waited too long and you got natural COVID. The issue is, how can you keep from getting natural COVID and getting really sick from natural COVID? Basically, again, stay at home, wear your mask, wash your hands, get the vaccine and the booster when it's called for. So the next part of the shenanigans, I went through going through the medical shenanigans, is this past week, I hadn't really thought about her, and I didn't know how formidable and cool she was until she passed away, and I had started looking up her books. But Madeline Albright passed away from cancer at the age of 84 this week. And God rest her, she was basically a titan among women. She had that lips, though, that would make you think, or the set of her mouth that would make you think that Madeline Albright didn't play. And it got me to thinking about everything that's going on with the Ukraine, everything that I'm watching them gaslight Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. I'm watching them, meaning so-called conservatives and the GOP and these ultra political people, wild out. But before I get to that, I want to bring up something else. I started out the podcast, or the beginning of this particular episode, and I've tried to basically bring positivity and Black excellence, and I think I did a really good job this week because I always have so many people to choose from. But on the flip side of that, there are people like Hershel Walker walking around and saying, well, if evolution was true and we supposedly humans descended from apes, why are apes still there? Or that science has not been able to recreate life or conception. And we know in vitro has basically will blow that out of the water. He is likable enough that he could be the Republican nomination for, I believe it's for, is it for governor? No, it's for a senator, a likely nomination for senator. And people will align themselves because the crazy stuff that he's saying, anti-science, conservative views, are in alignment with the science deniers and these right-wing zealots. He and his son, Christian Walker, they basically got dragged. He complained about gas prices, but he's standing in a $1,300 Givenchy sweatshirt, ultra rich. He has a really crazy following on social media, but we got these people that are representations of my race that are doing the most, and they are willing and okay with backing views that don't make a whole bunch of sense. The reason why I brought that up is because I wanted to drag Christian Walker, because I didn't even know who he was until I was listening to another podcast, and they brought up Hershel Walker spoke last week in Sugar Hill Church, and then they went on about dragging Christian Walker, his son. And then the death, how does all of those things play into how they interconnect? I honestly believe we are in, I call it a war of mediocrity, a war against mediocrity. We got people that are willing to support even playing field because they themselves are so basic. You know what I mean? And they're willing to do it by any means necessary. I think that I look at the rise of fascism, and I look at the perversion of democracy in the guise of sovereign citizens and these ultra conservative political zealots. Madeline Albright says, a fascist is someone who claims to speak for a whole nation or group, is utterly unconcerned with the rights of others, and is willing to use violence or what other means that are necessary to achieve goals he or she might have. There is a clash between democracy and fascism, a struggle that created uncertainty about survival of human freedom and left millions dead. We did it. I did not know that her family had to flee Czechoslovakia twice. First from the Nazis, the ultimate and first fascists, and then again by the Soviets. And they predicted and accused Putin of being a thug fascist, and he is. But she said that almost 30 years ago, and it's so true. And she said y'all need to watch him. And she said the same thing about Kim Jong-un. Same tactics. They will use it because if you don't allow them to do what they want, and if you don't believe or will support to do what they want, then you are against them and you deserve to be annihilated. Chemical warfare, biologic warfare, nuclear warfare as needed. So that is what comes into these ultra conservatives. They got this whole thing where they don't want anybody that looks like the majority, white, to feel bad about themselves. So they want to basically purge anything that will put their ancestors on blast for the dirt that they did. They will rather try to secure an election from someone that is completely ill-equipped to be able to lead a country, that is a sociopathic nut job, but they would rather him because he says some of the things that they want him to say, even though he only is in it for the cash and the power. Completely has no, he's unbalanced, and his reasoning is not, there's no reasoning with it, with who they want it to win, and they won't get over it. Then you got people that don't want you to not only feel bad about yourself from a color standpoint, they don't want people that they consider other for you to talk about things that they are uncomfortable talking about. So we got this run on book banning. They want to remove all references to sexuality and gender identity from libraries across Texas, and if you had them do it, basically across the U.S. They want to remove books like Drama by Raina Telgemeier, when Wilma Rudolph played basketball, and Lawn Boy, and Better Nate Than Never, Out of Darkness, and Ghost Boys, and Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. What is that about? Somebody in Houston wants this to be removed because it chronicles the relationship between a teen boy and girl with leukemia. And it says includes obscene language and could lead students to become over-sexualized and objectified. Really? Okay. Or will it lead to a discussion about why you should wait, and the more discussion around death for a young person and leukemia and those types of things. So I come to say all of these things is, number one, I'm going to start including a lot of these listed books because y'all have given me more ammunition and more swag and product to add to my online bookstores. Navigate to Chatterbooks at bookshop.org. Support your local small book retailers, but also I get a clip because I'm one of the publishers of those books. But also, you become very singular and not expansive because you don't know what you don't know until you know it. So why remove all of these books? I am a fan of certain material is age appropriate, but it also, that means mama and them need to read so y'all can have a conversation, so you can introduce these things. But you can't basically say just remove it and nobody has access to it. Just because you want to be basic and you don't want to have the discussion with your kid, you should not be allowed to ban and not everybody else have access to the information. But I got y'all. It'll be available on Chatterbooks. Just give me time because there's a whole bunch of books I need to add because y'all keep wilding out and y'all want everybody to be as stupid and as basic, as I said, as you are. You don't also realize that when we live in a true democracy, the individual rights of the individual are preserved, not at all costs or not the effect of the whole. We can all go forward because we can respect your individual rights, but you can't be at the expense to the whole group, because these real extremists, leftists even, and the extreme ultra conservative right, and these sovereign citizens, all of y'all are a perversion of what democracy is. You can have your own beliefs, but you can't. The whole issue what democracy says, you can have your own belief, but you don't have a right to force those beliefs on everybody, especially if it's at the expense of squashing other person's free speech because they don't agree with you and they need to go away or die because of that. That's fascism. Also, because your rights, you can't really pick and choose what rights and what laws you want to follow, because that is a perversion of the whole of what democracy is. You can't live free and productive in a democratic society and still be a sovereign citizen. You can want to pick and choose, but that's not how it works. We got a whole bunch of people that they have their own set of facts. They have their own set of rules that they want to live by, contrary to whatever the data says. And they think that they need to be able to live by that. No, it doesn't really work that way either, because if you continue to operate in that, you could absolutely hurt somebody else, unbeknownst to you and unbeknownst to them, because you are foolish. So I think I'm hopeful that people will read more about, I hope this tirade will allow people just to read and want to know more about what fascism is and what democracy is, and why these offshoots and ultra whatever are not a part of democracy. You have a right to be who you are and what you are, but you don't have a right to restrict my rights and my views to basically get your own view across. There's no place for it in a polite society, and there's really no place for it in a regular society. And I challenge everyone that listens to the podcast to read something that's going to expand your mind, even though it may be something that you wouldn't ordinarily read or wouldn't ordinarily watch. Oh, that's right. I'm going to have to order Pachenko. I'm going to suggest that is a tour de force, a new show on Apple TV Plus, I believe, that follows this family from Korea when it was occupied by Japan, and to the present day, I believe. They said on CBS News that it was actually good, but it's also historical context. And with all of this, I always wonder, people try to attack people that they don't understand. With all of the attacks on the Asian Americans, I think what would make them more human to people that are just crazy. You need to watch a show like that to get historical context and understand their struggle and understand their background and their history, because I'm hopeful it would open your mind and would make it people less likely to basically rage against people that they can actually relate to. But I also challenge you to watch a show like that and just to be open to other ideas, to expand your knowledge, to expand your mind. Read a book, read an article, read something that you wouldn't ordinarily read for the express purpose of getting a different perspective. Watching more than Fox, even watching more than CNN, watching more just to be a better version of yourself when you are today years old. That is my biggest challenge for the listening audience or whomever is listening to me today. And I think we would be a better as a society, and it just as a group of people, when we would realize there's very few things that basically separate us. We could just try to understand, or at least attempt to understand other people's perspective, and then figure out a way for all of us to work together, but still being respectful of individual differences. That is my wish for us. We can recognize the differences, but still work together for a common good and to go forward. That, I believe, is the crux of what democracy does. And being bold enough, secure enough in your own self and your own belief, to be able to say, okay, although I'm not going to convert her to my side, we can still work together and go forward. She doesn't have to go completely to my side. I don't have to go completely to hers, but we need to find a common ground to come together and work together to get things done, because this whole separateness for clicks and for clout, it's not going to work. That is the challenge. Expansion, and how we're going to be able to respect our differences, but come together for the greater good of everybody. That's the challenge for today. So that's how we're going to end this episode. And I'm going to end it with a a positive word. I used to scoff at people making this statement because of its simplicity, or maybe because it sounded more like an admonishment that I was being everything but kind. But then when I started investigating it for myself, that's when I realized that I was confusing politeness with kindness. Politeness is a fake, superficial manner in which there's no required investment, no self-reflection. But being kind is an adjective. It is an action. If you're kind to yourself first, it's like exercise memory. You will continue and be kind to others. Let that sit with you for a while. I'm going to try to be kind to myself. I'll be kind to others. It's very simple, and you got to repeat it. Lean into the spirit of a new year by counting your blessings, giving to others, and spreading happiness. I know I will. And this episode, or this podcast, is my means to spread joy and happiness and light and enlightenment. There's so much going on with aggression and just meanness. But if I can leave you with one small positive thought, start your day with that, that can change everything for you and just basically change your day. Don't forget to check out Dale's Angels Inc. for the notes on this podcast, as well as other works by CQM and other contributors that are in work or in being edited right now. Also, check out my Instagram feed, TNFro is Reading. You can check me out on Facebook, TNFro is Reading Book Club, as well as my YouTube channel, TNFro is Reading and Eating. And what I'm just chatting and streaming at TV Food Wine Girl on Twitter. Navigate to Writer's Block Coffee or shipabagadicts.com. Use my promo code TNFro Coffee or TNFro Got Jokes respectively to get a percentage off of your order. Don't forget to drop me a line at TNFroWasReading@gmail.com. All non-trolling messages may be actually read online, and you can do the same if you are in Podbean or Anchor or wherever you listen to the podcast. And again, shedding light and positivity. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I've enjoyed creating it. Until next time, bye.